Hello. Today we're actually going to take a break from talking about climate change, and instead we're going to talk about plagiarism. So today's warm-up is, what do you think plagiarism is? For this question, please use your own thoughts and words. Please avoid using Google. Just give me your best guess. So go ahead and pause the video to answer that question on Google Classroom. When you're done, come back. So some really quick announcements. First, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful winter break. I hope you got a lot of sleep and you're feeling energized to do the next stretch until spring break. Second, this doesn't really matter so much if you're watching this video, but this week my class and Ms. Chowdhury's class actually met together, whereas next week we're going to go back to having class separately. So again, that doesn't really matter if you're watching this video, but so today's agenda, we just did the warm-up, and next we're going to do a quick introduction to plagiarism. Third, we'll practice putting ideas into our own words, and lastly, we'll do our exit slip. Actually, only some classes have the exit slip. So if you do not see the Lesson 31 exit slip on Google Classroom, then you don't have to worry about the exit slip. Today's learning target is, by the end of today, you will be able to, 1, put ideas into your own words, and 2, cite your sources. There's a question that I want you to think about. And the question is, if you found out that a doctor cheated on his or her medical tests, would you want to see that doctor? Why or why not? So if you might, there are a million different answers to this question. If you're like me, then you're probably going to say that would not go to that doctor, because someone doesn't cheat when they know the answers, right? So if this doctor cheated on his or her medical tests or medical exams at medical school, then that means they probably don't know the basic concepts that they were supposed to know about medicine, which means that if you go to this doctor, you could be putting yourself at risk. Maybe the doctor doesn't know how to treat you. Maybe the doctor gives you the wrong medicine. And so cheating has very serious consequences in the real world outside of school. And what we're talking about today is plagiarism, which is a form of cheating. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is when someone steals someone else's work or ideas and presents them as their own. When you present them as your own, you say that these ideas are yours, when actually they're not. Or you use these ideas in your own work without saying where you got these ideas. In the second example, you're kind of implying that these ideas are yours when they are actually not. The reason that Ms. Chowdhury and I wanted to take some time to talk about plagiarism is because in the fall semester, we noticed that there were a lot of times students were copying and pasting answers from Google and putting them in their assignments, which is plagiarism. And we think that students are doing that just because they don't know what plagiarism is. And so we wanted to take some time and teach you guys about plagiarism and teach you how to avoid it. That way, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But what are some reasons someone might plagiarize? So someone might plagiarize. In class, people said that someone might plagiarize because they are not sure that they know the answer, or maybe they feel like they're running out of time. They want to do it really quickly. Maybe it's really easy, Or again, like I just said, and this is what Ms. Chaudhry and I think, many people just don't know what plagiarism is. And so now that you know what plagiarism is, and even if you knew before, I wanted to give you 2 reasons why you should not plagiarize. So first, when you plagiarize, you're not building your own skills. So by putting in the work that Ms. Chaudhry and I give you, you're practicing and getting better at your own reading and writing skills. And these are skills that you're going to need for the rest of your life. So Ms. Chaudhry and I are not just giving you work to do to torture you. Believe me, grading stuff is kind of horrible. I would not do that to you if there were not a purpose. But we give you these assignments because we want you to practice your reading, your writing, and your critical thinking skills. Like I said, these are skills that you're going to use for the rest of your life. So when you plagiarize, you're not doing your own work, and you're not getting that practice that is going to become really valuable when you become an adult. Second is when you plagiarize, sometimes you're not even fulfilling the requirements. So it's a lot of times, Ms. Chaudhry and I see answers that are copied and pasted from the internet that don't even answer the question. So even when you plagiarize, you still might get 0 points because you just didn't answer the question. So that's the second thing. The second reason you should not plagiarize. What do you think will happen if you plagiarize? I'm sure you thought of a few different reasons that someone might plagiarize. The first is a 0. You could get a 0 on an assignment. So if you plagiarize on an assignment in my class, you will get a 0 for that question. Sometimes an assignment is actually just 1 question. So if you plagiarize on that 1 question, then you will get a 0 for the whole assignment. The second thing is that you could, and I also want to remind you, if you get a 0 on an assignment, or if you ever get a grade that you don't like, you can always redo it. You can redo it as many times as you want until you have a grade that you're okay with. Second, if you plagiarize, your academic record could be ruined. So if schools and companies know that you have plagiarized, they will view you differently. And that's because schools and companies are very serious about plagiarism. Stealing someone else's ideas and claiming them as your own is stealing. And so if you plagiarize at your job, or like in high school or in college, you could actually get expelled or fired. So it's quite serious. And then the third thing is you could come into legal trouble. So in the business world or the music world, if you take someone else's product, like a technological design or like part of a song or someone's art, and you act like it's your own, this is theft. Again, plagiarism is quite literally stealing. And it could lead you to going to court and paying heavy fines. So legal trouble, obviously you're not going to get in any kind of legal trouble in middle school or high school, but in beyond high school, this is a very serious. It's very serious. So actually, I have a real life example of the consequences of plagiarism. So I think you guys know who this is. This is President-elect Joe Biden. He'll become our president on January 20th. You may not know this, but he's actually run for president 3 times. The first time he ran for president was in 1988. And back then, many people believed he was the strongest candidate. So he was the one that people thought would win. During his campaign, Biden used lines from another politician's speech, always citing his sources. So Biden one time heard this speech from another politician, loved the speech. So he actually borrowed some lines from it. But he always said where he got those lines. So he said, as blah, blah, blah person once said, and then he gave the lines. So that's actually called citing your sources. That's when you say where you got this work from. So you're giving credit to the original writer. But one time, Biden used that speech during a debate and forgot to cite a source. Once newspapers reported that Biden plagiarized, he immediately ended his campaign. So technically, the people that heard that speech thought that everything Biden was saying was his own ideas. And so that was plagiarism. So even though he usually cited his sources, he forgot one time, and he had to pay the consequences. So this doesn't make him, a bad person. But it does mean that plagiarism is really serious, and when you plagiarize, you do have to pay the consequences. So how can we avoid plagiarism? Glad you asked. There are 3 different ways. First is use your brain. Second is put ideas into your own words. And third is cite your sources. So first, use your brain. So you probably know this, I hope you know this, but to complete our work in science class, you actually don't even need the internet. Or rather, you don't need to use Google, because all the information you need for our assignments can actually be found in our class slides or class videos like this one, or sometimes when we do readings. So all you really need to do is look through Google Classroom. This is the absolute best way to avoid plagiarism, because there's nothing to plagiarize when you're looking through Google Classroom. This is also a way to learn. So if you plagiarize, you're probably not learning the stuff you're plagiarizing. Whereas if you're going through Google Classroom and you have to search for this information, you're learning it, and that's really awesome. That's good for you. But sometimes you need to read an article online, and so that's when you could put the ideas in your own words. So if you're reading an article online, when you find an idea that you need, put it in your own words. So that just means rewrite it in a way that you would say it. That way you're not stealing the words of someone else. And this is also really important because teachers can tell when students are copying and pasting from the internet instead of using their own words. So if I see some words that I know you don't know, or I think that, or if I see a word that like a really like advanced science word that I studied in college and I still don't quite understand what that means, if I see that in your answer, I'm going to say, whoa, how does this kid know about this? And all I have to do is take your answer, copy it, paste it back into Google, and I can see where you got it from. There are a lot of other ways that teachers can tell when you've plagiarized, when you've stolen the words from someone else. So to avoid that, just put your ideas in your own words. That both avoids you plagiarizing, but it also shows that you understand the idea that you saw. So again, you're learning when you put ideas into your own words. And third, if the article you're reading put it in just the exact perfect way, and there's no good way to reword it, you can actually cite your source. So you can say where you got that information. So you can put it in quotation marks and then say where you got it, or give me the website link. But also, anytime you use any information from class or outside of class, you really should say where you got the information from. So like, was it a graph, a chart, an article you read? Did this graph or chart or article come from lesson 26? Did it come from NASA's website? So this is really easy. All you have to do is say, according to NASA, blah, 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 blah. So according to NASA, and then say whatever idea you got from NASA. Or you can say, as we learned in lesson 26, comma, blah, 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 blah. And then tell me what we learned in lesson 26. Right? That tells me exactly where you got that information. You're giving credit to wherever that information came from. You're good. That's not plagiarism. Right? So right now we're actually going to do a little bit of practice. So if you go into Google Classroom, Under week 18, there's a post called Lesson 30, Putting into Your Own Words Practice. If you open that up, you're going to see a sheet that looks like this. So there are 3 columns. The first column is the assignment that we did. The second column is what students in your class wrote for that assignment. All of these answers were were plagiarized in some way. And these are actually what what your classmates wrote. Your job. You're going to look at column number 3. You're going to help the student. So there are 3 ways that you can help the student. The first way is you can explain what's wrong with their answer. So sometimes maybe their answer doesn't answer the question at all because, again, it's copy and pasted from the internet. Or maybe you can point out something that they're missing. Some of them are missing parts of the question. The second thing you can do is explain where they got this information. So you could say, hey, this is plagiarized. It came from blah, blah, blah website. So if you see something that looks plagiarized, you can copy it and paste it into Google and see where it came from. The third thing you can do, this is actually probably the easiest, honestly. The third thing you can do is just rewrite their answer. So you can rewrite their answer in a way that answers the question. Right? So you're going to do that for numbers 2, 3, 4, and number 5. So 2, 3, and 4, those are actual assignments, and those are actual things that students wrote, that your classmates wrote. Number 5 is, this is sort of an example that came from the internet. So this right here, this is what I wrote. And it is plagiarized. You tell me where you got it. Right? And like I said, if your class has an exit slip, it will be on Google Classroom. If your class does not have an exit slip, then you are good to go after you finish this. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know. And from now on, I will definitely be watching to make sure that you're putting all of your ideas into your own words. Bye, guys.